Welcome to this training session on neurodiversity and self-harm for professionals. My name is Lynette Buebird and I'll be guiding you through the session today. The main aims of the session today are to understand the context of young people's mental health, define neurodiversity, explore the impact of neurodiversity on mental health, understand self-harm, develop self-care strategies for neurodiverse young people, and access further resources and support services. Recent years have seen a significant rise in the number of young people needing support from child and adolescent mental health services. At the same time, neurodevelopmental conditions remain closely linked with children's mental health needs. The following figures help illustrate this trend. In the year 2023-24, 958,200 young people were referred for support from CAMHS, which was an increase of 9,000 from the year 2022-23. This is approximately 8% of all children in England. Neurodevelopmental conditions like autism and ADHD are not mental health conditions. However, children's neurodevelopment is often assessed in children and young people's mental health services, and neurodevelopmental and mental health conditions do frequently co-occur. The demand for children's mental health services continue to rise. Interestingly, the statistics show the difficulties in accessing services for young people's mental health. 31% had their referrals closed without treatment offered. This could be for a number of reasons, such as not meeting the threshold for treatment, being signposted or referred to other services, or potential capacity issues. 36% began treatment, 33% was still waiting for treatment after 1 year, and out of all of the people still waiting for support, 64% of those were for suspected autism. The last statistic is particularly interesting, showing that neurodivergence and problems with mental health do frequently co-occur, as previously mentioned. So let's have a look at neurodiversity. The following film helps explore some terminology that will be referred to throughout this session.
Just like our fingerprints, all our brains are unique. But for the majority of people, their brains are similar enough that there are largely no obvious differences in how they function. They have differences in things like skills, preferences, and styles. But mostly, their brains mean they perceive the world in the same way. But for others, their brains are more fundamentally different. They have differences in things like social understanding, sensory processing, communication, and information processing. These differences are a result of neurological differences such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and more. This natural variation in our brains is called neurodiversity. Those of us with no neurological conditions are neurotypical, and those of us with neurological conditions are neurodivergent. Neurodivergent people think differently. Their unique perspectives and experiences mean they can often excel at creativity and innovation, have highly specialised skill sets, and an ability to hyperfocus. If embraced, this can be a huge advantage to organisations and society. However, the differences neurodivergent people experience can make life challenging. In order to thrive at work, they often need some simple accommodations. For example, a sensory calm environment to recharge in, or a routine with the same start and end times. Approximately 1 in 7 people are neurodivergent, so not only is embracing neurodiversity critical for a truly inclusive organisation, but it also presents organisations with a huge opportunity.
The film we just watched provided us with a good introduction to neurodiversity, a term that describes the natural differences in how individuals' brains develop and function. The term neurodivergent refers to an individual whose brain functions differ from what society considers typical. Neurotypical describes those whose brain functions align more closely with common societal expectations. The National Autistic Society provides a clear and widely used explanation of this term, helping to support our understanding. We all react to things differently because as humans, we are neurodiverse. Some groups of people have significant shared differences in their experience and reactions compared to most people. When these significant differences are linked with how information from the senses is being processed by the brain, the group is described as neurodivergent. So now we're familiar with some of the terminology, let's have a think about how this can have an impact on mental health. Firstly, chronic misunderstanding or misdiagnosis. When neurodivergent traits are misunderstood, people are often faced with repeated invalidation. This can cause things such as internalised confusion and sometimes inappropriate treatments. It can also lead to low self-esteem or delayed access to appropriate support or accommodation, which can only be detrimental to mental health and well-being. Secondly, masking and camouflaging. This is where people suppress or hide traits to appear in a manner that is socially or professionally acceptable, and this can be completely exhausting, resulting in burnout. It can create heightened anxiety and social fatigue, but is also linked to a greater risk of identity loss, depression, and anxiety. Social rejection or isolation is another consideration. Difficulties that neurodivergent people may experience with communication, behaviour, or interests may lead to exclusion or bullying. This can result in someone feeling different or chronically rejected, increasing the risk of loneliness and feelings of alienation. In addition to this, internalised beliefs of being too much or not enough may also increase vulnerability to depression and anxiety. We also need to think about sensory overload. This is where someone experiences overwhelm from excessive sensory input. Neurodivergent people may experience hypersensitivity to things such as noise, light, touch, which can then trigger meltdowns, panic responses, and hypervigilance. It can prevent people participating in daily life or entering public spaces due to fear of overwhelm, which in turn will have a significant impact on someone's mental health and well-being. Executive dysfunction is another area we need to consider. Neurodivergent people may also have difficulties with organisation, planning, memory and time management, which then creates increased anxiety around productivity and performance. It can result in feelings of guilt, frustration and low self-esteem, especially in those settings that value productivity. Depression is linked to chronic feelings of inadequacy and unmet expectations. Being aware of this is key. Systematic barriers can also be a problem. A lot of environments are not suited or made with a neurodivergent individual's needs in mind. This lack of accommodation can increase the risk of burnout or ongoing stress from navigating inequitable systems. The task of navigating inaccessible environments can create chronic stress, disempowerment, and in turn impact mental health and well-being. Internalised ableism and stigma can also be problematic for neurodivergent people. Absorbing societal stigma and exposure to negative stereotypes can lead to neurodivergent individuals believing they're broken or less than. This internalised stigma often drives depression, shame, and anxiety. In addition to this, neurodivergent individuals are statistically more likely to experience trauma, which can have a significant impact on existing mental health vulnerabilities. Neurodivergent people are more likely to experience bullying, abuse, medical trauma, and social exclusion. Experiencing trauma can increase the risk of emotional dysregulation, hypervigilance, trust and attachment difficulties, and other symptoms such as pain and fatigue. The following film delves deeper into trauma, looking at how the brain can be impacted.
Brain development is much more than a story about biology. From the earliest years, relationships with others play a key role in shaping how our brain grows and develops. Early relationships, where there is abuse and neglect, have a long-term impact on children. A brain that has adapted to survive in a threatening or unpredictable world may not work so well in an ordinary environment. This can create what is called latent vulnerability, where early abusive or neglectful experiences with carers put children at greater risk of experiencing mental health problems in the future. For these children, compared to their peers, common experiences like moving to a new school can feel more daunting and stressful. New faces can appear threatening, while positive social cues can be missed. It can be harder to negotiate new social situations and learn to trust new people. Even fun experiences like joining a new sports team can be challenging. Too much focus on potential threat cues can mean missing out on positive social cues such as a playful nudge. Or it causes an overreaction, which leads to an increased risk of conflict and sometimes violence. These reactions can increase the likelihood of generating new stressful events. It's harder to deal with everyday challenges when you feel unconfident and anxious inside, and harder to build and maintain relationships. Over time, this can mean a child loses friends and the support of adults, and so misses out on opportunities to grow and develop. This social thinning can increase the risk of mental health problems in the future. Neuroscience research is beginning to shed new light on how vulnerability unfolds over a child's life. All children need care and stimulation from adults who value them and who show them attention and love. These experiences shape a child's brain development. When children face traumatic experiences like abuse and neglect, their brain adapts to help them cope. We know of changes in 3 different brain systems: the reward, memory, and threat systems. Experiences of domestic violence or physical abuse can lead to hypervigilance, where the brain reacts more to threat. This might help a child stay safe in an early adverse environment, but it can cause problems in more ordinary environments. Hypervigilance can best be understood as a pattern of adaptation rather than a sign of damage. Abuse and neglect can also mean a world where a child's basic needs for care and attention are not met. This can shape the brain's reward system, the part of the brain that helps us learn about positive aspects of our environment and motivates our behaviour. Over time, the brain's reward system can learn to respond differently to things like positive social cues. Neuroscience studies have also pointed to changes in the autobiographical memory system, our memory of everyday past experiences. Following trauma, negative memories appear to become more salient, which means they become more prominent than positive ones. And everyday memories can also become less detailed. This is a problem because we need to draw on past experiences to help us deal with new social situations. Neuroscience research is showing how childhood trauma can create latent vulnerability, increasing the risk of later mental health problems like anxiety and depression. This vulnerability is not just located in the child, but arises through their relationships. Helping children who have experienced trauma still requires ordinary boundaries and consequences, but it also requires us to step back and reflect and see behaviour that we find challenging in a different light. A child may simply be doing their best to survive now, with brain adaptations from the past. We know a child's brain has the capacity to continue to adapt. For this to happen, they need our help to build and maintain trusted relationships, manage everyday stressors, and prevent new ones from happening. We need to encourage them to try again and believe things can be different. This is far from an easy task and takes time. Science is helping reframe our understanding of childhood trauma. Seeing children's behaviour in a new light can mean we respond differently. But there is much still to learn. Working together, we can develop more effective approaches that promote resilience and recovery. We can help children build trusting relationships and create opportunities for their brains to adapt in new ways.
Let's take a moment for reflection. As you think back on the clip, consider which parts resonated with you most or stood out in particular. Support structures often prioritise addressing behaviours rather than recognising and validating neurodivergent experiences. When support doesn't feel genuinely supportive, it can inadvertently increase distress instead of alleviating it. And lastly, conditions like anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD frequently co-occur with neurodivergence. When these conditions are not properly addressed, they can amplify existing challenges and emotional strain. To deepen our understanding of how individuals process emotions, we're now going to look at alexithymia. Let me ask you a question. How do you feel right now? While a neurotypical person may find this relatively straightforward to answer, a neurodivergent individual may find the question more challenging. Alexithymia is a term meaning no words for emotions. It refers to a series of traits such as the inability to verbalise or identify, describing or process our own emotions. It isn't something that's exclusive to a person who is neurodivergent. However, around 50 to 60% of autistic individuals experience alexithymia, and the co-occurrence of both can amplify challenges. For example, social communication difficulties may be amplified due to limited emotional awareness. Emotional regulation becomes harder, potentially increasing anxiety or distress in unpredictable situations. With alexithymia defined, we now turn our attention to interoception, often described as our internal sensory system that monitors bodily states and plays a crucial role in emotional awareness. Interoception is one of the more recently explored senses in scientific research. Specialised receptors throughout the body enable us to perceive, identify and interpret internal signals. These signals include sensations such as hunger, thirst, heartbeat, the need to use the toilet, and a lot more. What's particularly interesting is that our emotional experiences are deeply connected to these bodily signals. For example, a growling stomach signals hunger. Once we eat, our energy is replenished, the growling subsides, and the feeling of satisfaction emerges. Many neurodivergent individuals experience differences in interoception, which can manifest either as heightened sensitivity or diminished sensitivity. This may lead to challenges such as ignoring bodily needs until they become urgent, or experiencing intense discomfort from mild sensations. These differences can significantly impact well-being, potentially contributing to dysregulation, meltdowns, or shutdowns. Enhancing interoceptive awareness can help reduce the effects of alexithymia by improving the ability to recognise and interpret internal bodily signals. Several approaches have been found to be effective, such as mindfulness and body scanning exercises, as these encourage individuals to focus attention on different parts of the body, noticing sensations without judgment. Emotional labelling exercises, because these connect physical sensations to specific emotions, helping individuals to better identify and articulate how they're feeling. And also occupational therapy, as this supports regulation and interpretation of sensory input, helping individuals respond more effectively to bodily cues. By practicing these techniques, individuals can develop a stronger connection between their body and their emotions, supporting emotional regulation and overall well-being.
Body scanner. This should make you aware of what is happening in your body. Lie down if you have space in your classroom, or sit comfortably, whichever your teacher prefers. This is the body scanner, and you are going to imagine that you are in an X-ray, which is going to slowly scan each of your body parts. Let's start at the bottom and focus on your feet. Put all your attention there. Don't think about any other body part. Think about what sensations are there. How do your socks feel? Can you feel the soft fabric? Think about where your shoes are tight. Is this at the top or around your heel? Now the scanner is slowly moving up your legs. Think about how your calf muscles feel. Are they tight? Is anywhere sore? Think about your thigh muscles above your knees. They might feel tired if you've been doing a lot of running. If they do, that is fine. Don't be annoyed by this. It is not a bad thing. Just recognize how they feel and accept it. Now the scanner is on your tummy. Is there any rumbling there? Can you feel your food being digested? Be open to any other feelings or sensations there. Now the scanner has moved up to your chest and around your heart. Focus on this area. Think about what you can feel there. Now onto your shoulders and neck. Is there any tingling there? Any tightness? Remember that any feelings are okay. We are just recognizing what is going on. The scanner is moving over your face now. Think about your chin. Your lips. Are these relaxed or shut tight? Your cheeks. Your eyes. Your forehead. Often we tighten our forehead without realizing. Well done. You should now be familiar with what your body is feeling like. Maybe you realize that you are hungry, or that your muscles are tight and need stretching, or that you have a headache. It is important to recognize any sensations, as this is our body's way of telling us if anything is wrong. We often don't notice any sensations until they become stronger, as we are too busy thinking. You can do the body scanner yourself. It is a great one to do when you are lying down in bed before you go to sleep to relax and unwind.
Now that we've talked about neurodivergence, we move on to self-harm. We'll look at what it is, common myths, and most importantly, ways to support someone who may be self-harming. Self-harm is a complex behaviour that can occur for many different reasons. The film we're going to watch aims to define and help us understand a little bit more about this particular topic.
This film discusses non-graphic experiences of self-harm. Self-harm as an individual act is hard to define. In general, however, self-harm refers to the deliberate act of causing harm to yourself through physical injury, putting yourself in harm's way, increased risk-taking, or self-neglect. Anyone can self-harm, and self-harm can take on many forms. However, some people can be more vulnerable to self-harm due to situations that make well-being more difficult for them. For example, those facing bullying and discrimination, people who have low self-esteem, or those with an underlying mental illness. Self-harm is most common in young people aged 11 to 25, with research suggesting that around 1 in 6 teenagers aged 14 have self-harmed. It's important to remember that self-harm is a coping mechanism, not a condition or mental illness. We must understand the underlying issue that is causing the self-harm within an individual if we are to help them. There's no one type of person who self-harms, and everyone can have different reasons for self-harming. Some people say they self-harm because they're seeking a sense of comfort. This may be from a release of tension, but also by providing an opportunity to seek care and nurture from others. Others can feel a lack of control in their lives. Self-harm is sometimes an attempt to gain control over their own bodies. Some people feel they need to self-punish to deal with feelings of shame, low self-esteem, and self-blame. Self-harm is primarily a means of regulating feelings, rather than gaining a response from others, but it can be seen as a form of communication when people feel that they can't find the words. People also report using self-harm to release feelings that feel unbearable when they're held inside. For some, self-harming is an attempt to feel real or distract them from emotional pain. Some people may have a mixture of reasons, or they may not have an insight into why they self-harm, and that's okay too. You may be in a situation where someone may confide in you, or you may notice that they're self-harming. There are as many different self-harm experiences as there are people, so there isn't one right way to deal with the situation, but there are a few things that could help. Give the person an opportunity to tell you what they need to. Try to be as non-judgmental, empathetic, and calm as possible, and try to practice active listening. Having an open and honest conversation can really help someone who is struggling with self-harm. It's likely that the disclosure of self-harm is a big step for the person you're talking to, so treat it as such and respect their privacy. You may feel upset by someone you know harming themselves, so make sure to take care of your own well-being. Try your best to support the person on their own journey in their own time. It's important to remember you can't expect a quick fix. Stopping the harm immediately may not be possible. Make sure you understand the underlying issues that may be causing the behaviour and try to tackle these. If you're a professional, consult your own safeguarding policies and procedures. There are plenty of resources on understanding self-harm or any other themes addressed in this film. Please look in the description of this film to find out more.
Noted in the introduction, self-harm is frequently surrounded by myths and misunderstandings, which can make it harder for people to seek help and for others to respond appropriately. In this section, we'll examine some of the most common myths and clarify the realities. Myth number 1. Self-harm is a suicide attempt. Self-harm is a form of communication and can typically be a way for someone trying to stay alive. It's where a person physically hurts themselves when feelings and emotions feel out of control, too overwhelming, or can also be when they feel numb. It's an outlet for these difficult emotions, although it's important to note the outlet is temporary. Number 2. Self-harm is attention-seeking behaviour. As mentioned previously, self-harm is communication and a release of huge emotional overwhelm. It can be for a number of reasons, such as expressing feelings of rage, gaining control when you have none, a person punishing themselves because they feel they deserve it, a coping mechanism to feel alive when dissociated, to stop you from hurting others, or to manage traumatic feelings. Therefore, it is not an attention-seeking behaviour. It is due to distress. 3. Cutting is the only form of self-harm. Cutting is a common form of self-harm. However, it can happen in a number of ways. We can have direct forms of self-harm, such as suicide attempts, self-injury without suicidal intention, such as picking at the skin, breaking bones, burning, scalding, hair pulling or head banging, but they can also be indirect forms of self-harm, such as substance or alcohol misuse, restricting food or binge eating, over-exercising, or digital self-harm. Therefore, cutting is a form of self-harm, but not the only form of self-harm. Myth number 4. Only adolescents engage in self-harm. A person can self-harm at any age. Anyone who experiences overwhelm, loss of control, or sudden social isolation may self-harm to manage. There are a number of triggers throughout life, such as bereavement, relationship issues, financial issues, struggles with identity, or school or work pressures. Therefore, not only adolescents engage in self-harm, it can happen at any age. Myth number 5. It's mostly only white teenage females who self-harm. Girls are twice as likely than boys to self-harm. However, there are many vulnerable groups who also self-harm, such as young people who are gay or gender fluid, children who experience trauma and loss, including neglect and abuse, people who experience social isolation, people who have experienced bereavement by suicides, and there is also an increased risk in Black and South Asian people and those from other non-white ethnic groups. Therefore, yes, white teenage females do self-harm, but it's not mostly white teenage females. There are a number of vulnerable groups who also self-harm. Myth number 6. Superficial self-injury isn't a problem. The amount someone has self-harmed is not reflective of the depth of their emotional distress, and all types of self-injury should be cared for medically and treated with compassion. So superficial self-injury is most definitely a problem and should be addressed. And something to bear in mind, self-harm is not a mental health disorder or a behavioural disorder. If and when a child or young person attempts to reach out about self-harm, they may be holding hope that you'll be on their side and support them non-judgmentally with compassion and support. It's important to be understanding, but also ensuring that you support yourself to be able to do this. There is a range of signposting at the end of this training session that you may want to look at. So what's the link between neurodivergence and self-harm? Because not every neurodivergent person self-harms, and neurodivergence itself does not cause self-harm. But certain traits or challenges that are common in some neurodivergent profiles can increase vulnerability. For example, emotional regulation differences. Conditions such as ADHD, autism, and some other neurotypes often come with an intense or rapidly shifting emotion, difficulty naming or understanding those emotions, or overload from sensory or social environments. When these emotions hit hard, they may feel unmanageable, and some people may turn to self-harm as an immediate way to regulate or quiet those feelings, although that would be temporary and unhealthy. Secondly, sensory processing challenges. Some autistic or sensory sensitive people experience things such as overwhelming sensory input, numbness or shutdown states, and self-harm can be used as a way to interrupt numbness or ground oneself after overload. Thirdly, masking social stress and burnout. Masking or suppressing neurodivergent traits can create a range of problems such as chronic stress, exhaustion, identity confusion, and feelings of being misunderstood. These pressures can contribute to depression, anxiety, or hopelessness, which all raise the risk of self-harm. And rejection, bullying, misunderstood behaviour. Neurodivergent people, children and adults, face higher rates of bullying, exclusion, and invalidation. Long-term invalidation can affect self-worth, which can also contribute to self-harm patterns. Therefore, it's really important to be aware that there is a link between neurodivergent traits and self-harming behaviour. Now that we've covered the main myths surrounding self-harm, it's time to think about how we can start a supportive conversation if we suspect somebody's struggling. This can be a really thing to do, so we've got some useful sentence starters that can help open the dialogue. Things that are really supportive, non-judgmental, empathetic and compassionate to help somebody understand that you're there to support them through this difficult time that they're experiencing. I've noticed you've not seemed yourself lately. Is there anything you'd like to talk about? It sounds like you have a lot going on at the moment. Do you want to talk about it? I can see you and I'm worried about how you are. Is there something on your mind lately? I'm here to listen if you'd like to talk. It can be really difficult to talk about self-harm. Acknowledging that it's difficult and creating a safe space is really important. Being non-judgmental and empathetic can be the key in starting to open the dialogue. Helpful responses to a disclosure are as follows. You're not in any trouble. It's helpful that you disclose this to me. It sounds like you're having a difficult time. It's okay to struggle, and I'm here to listen. You're not alone. There's lots of support available, and I'm here to help you. I understand that it's difficult to cope right now. We can explore other strategies that will help you cope whilst keeping you safe. When a young person is using self-harm to cope with difficult feelings or situations, immediately trying to stop that behaviour will not always be helpful. Instead, we can support them in developing alternate coping strategies that may provide them with relief, reducing the risk of physical harm, such as infections or injuries. For example, if they're feeling angry, some alternative strategies may include hitting a pillow or cushion, squeezing a rubber ball as hard as possible, playing some loud music, tearing up paper like an old newspaper or a book, clenching then relaxing all of their muscles, writing what has made them feel angry and scrunching up the paper. And all of these strategies allow young people to express and release the intense emotions in a safe way whilst being supported in managing their feelings effectively. It isn't a one-size-fits-all, so it's very important that it's a person-centred approach. And if one strategy doesn't work, you can try a different one until you find something that works for that young person. Other feelings somebody might be experiencing are sadness or fear. Wrapping yourself in something cosy like a jumper or blanket can increase that feeling of security. Spending time with an animal or cuddling a soft toy can also increase that feeling of security. Going for a walk to a soothing place and potentially taking someone with you if that helps, so you can talk through emotions you might be experiencing. Journaling is a really good way to get out those feelings or things that are going through your mind. And if you're not into writing, recording a video or an audio clip. Just allowing yourself to be in the moment and cry or rest if you need to, or potentially listening to some calming music. But most importantly, reaching out to somebody you care about or contacting a helpline such as Samaritans, self-injury support, or a peer support service such as Side by Side. Practicing breathing exercises is really good to help self-regulate and regulate your emotions. So potentially box breathing could be really good, or the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. If you're feeling disconnected or numb, things that you could do to make yourself feel less numb or disconnected are washing your face with cold water, splashing your wrists with cold water or ice, drawing on or place a plaster where you feel the urge to harm yourself. Gently massaging that area to reconnect with your body. Practicing these strategies can help young people safely express and manage intense emotions, while also developing a toolbox to support them when they're not feeling okay, and potentially in times where they might be alone and self-harm is the option that they usually turn to. So it's really, really important that we instill these safer ways to cope for young people.
Hi, I'm Emily and I work for Hampshire CAMS, Hampshire Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service. What we do is work with young people to help them understand and manage their emotions and their mental well-being. Let's start with a check-in for you right now. This thermometer has some words that might help you identify where you are currently. Notice how your body is feeling and your breathing. You may be feeling the same or different to those around you, and that's okay and perfectly normal. Okay, today we're going to talk about self-soothe boxes. Let me just grab mine. This is my self-soothe box. I filled it with things that I found around the house, maybe I found at the beach, in the woods, and I've tried to find things that can soothe all 5 of my senses. Starting with touch, here are some pine cones I found in the woods. They're really rough, nice to touch, nice to feel. Here are some shells I found on the beach, really smooth, really nice ridges. And just some nice fabric, really lovely to look at, really nice to touch. The added benefit with the shells or the pine cones or something that you might find out and about is that it can remind you of a really special time. So I picked these shells up when I was on a lovely walk with the dog on the beach, and it reminds me of a time I felt really calm. Next we have taste. I've included some tea bags and some popping candy. For me, I feel like there's nothing a good cup of tea can't fix, but you can add whatever works for you. I find that having a tea bag in my self-soothe box reminds me to go and take 5 minutes out, have a cup of tea, and just calm down. You can add what you think you prefer, maybe a hot chocolate sachet, maybe your favourite sweet, whatever you think is going to soothe you in that time that you need it. Next we have smell. I've included my favourite bubble bath. I feel like that works because for me, it reminds me to go and have a bath, take the time that I need to soothe, take 5 minutes out of the day just for me. It depends on your favourite smell. I love vanilla. You can also include your favourite scented candle, fruity, if it's sweet, whatever you prefer and whatever you think is going to work best for you. Next we have sight. For me, I've included some postcards. Some of them are funny. They make me laugh when I need a bit of a boost. Some of them are maybe a bit inspirational when I just need to be picked up a little bit. For you, it can be whatever works. You can have something from your friend, maybe a nice message written from them on the back, or you can include pictures of places you might want to go, or maybe that you've already been that have really special memories from you. I've always wanted to travel to Australia, so I might include a picture of it. I might add that into my self-soothe box to remind me that I have something to look forward to, a dream that I've got that I've always wanted to work towards. Maybe you've been to Australia, you could include a picture of it. You could include pictures of places you might want to travel to one day with your friends or families. You could include pictures of your loved ones or even a picture of your pet. Finally, sound. For me, I have a list in here of all my favourite songs, playlists for different moods that I might be in. I've got a feel-good playlist for when I really need to bring myself up. I've got a soothing playlist, one that I might take a nap to. For you, it might be a reminder to listen to your favourite CD. It might be a recording of a friend selling you a sweet message, or it might just be a list of people you can call when you need someone to speak to. I keep my self-soothe box under my bed because I know where it is and it's close to me when I need it. For you, it can be under your bed, it can be in a cupboard, it can be in the kitchen, wherever works best for you, as long as you know where it is when you need it. You can decorate it, you can decoupage it, you can add some tissue paper, wrap it in wrapping paper, make it really personal and make it special to you. It is a bit big and bulky and it is hard to carry about, so I keep myself a mini one, just with a little note to remind myself of something in my box that I know will soothe me and that I can see when I get home. You can put a grounding object in it. It might be a pebble from a beach or a tiny shell maybe, just something to remind you of your box that you can take out and about in your pocket. Now it's your turn to go and make your very own self-soothe box. I bet you've got loads of ideas from this. Go have fun with it, decorate it, make it your own. If you need any more ideas, visit the Hampshire CAMS website. Thank you for watching.
Self-care for all of us is really important. Rest is a vital part of taking care of ourselves. Autism and ADHD can significantly affect a person's ability to rest. Neurodivergent nervous systems are often more reactive, which can lead to higher levels of stress hormones in the body, making it more difficult to relax. It's important to recognise that rest for neurodivergent individuals may look different from neurotypical rest. Supported and effective rest often requires approaches that take into account how their bodies and their brains work. As noted, resting may look different to neurodivergent individuals, but it's really important we find ways to reduce stress and support overall well-being. Rest is fundamental, and it needs to be approached differently than it would be for neurotypical individuals. This can include something such as pottering, engaging in light activities such as tidying, organising, gardening or gentle housework, which can be calming and provide a sense of accomplishment. Being in nature, spending time outdoors in quiet spaces away from overstimulated environments can help reset and soothe our nervous systems and help the body get that rest it needs. Sensory comfort, using items like soft clothing, weighted blankets, hammocks, candles or electric blankets can create a comforting sensory environment, again giving us the rest that we may need. Media, watching safe TV programmes or films, listening to music, something that's enjoyable and calming. And special interests, immersing in personal passions or hobbies that provide focus, enjoyment and emotional regulation. By incorporating these approaches, neurodivergent individuals can practice self-care in ways that truly support their unique needs and help them feel more balanced and grounded. I hope you found this session useful. There are a range of support services available if you or someone you know or someone you're working with is struggling with any of the topics we've discussed today in the session. Mind, Samaritans, Harmless, Young Minds, NSPCC, Childline and Switchboard all offer a range of services to support mental health and wellbeing. There are also a range of apps that can be really helpful for young people to manage their emotions and mental health. This includes Blue Ice, Calm Harm and Distract, which you can find available on your phone's app store. West Sussex Parent and Carer Forum and the National Autistic Society also have a range of useful resources on their website to support you further. Shout is a free text service that you can also use. I will show you a quick clip of the support they offer on the next slide.
Are you feeling stressed, depressed, or struggling to cope? Shout is a free and confidential text messaging service for anyone in the UK who needs support. It's silent, anonymous, and available 24/7. To start a conversation, text the word SHOUT to 85258. You'll receive an automatic reply before being connected to one of our trained volunteers who will listen without judgment to how you're feeling. The Shout volunteer will introduce themselves and ask you to share what's on your mind. You might be feeling lonely or struggling with a relationship. Perhaps you're anxious about university or work, or you're having suicidal thoughts. Whatever's troubling you, Shout is here to listen. Conversations usually last between 45 and 60 minutes, as you text back and forth with the volunteer. The goal is to help you reach a calm and safe place, with a plan for how you will support yourself going forwards. Shout, here for you 24/7.
Thank you for watching this session. We've covered a lot of important topics, such as defining neurodivergence and understanding the impact it has on mental health, as well as exploring the complexities of self-harm in young people and developing self-care strategies. A key takeaway is to remember your informed and compassionate response can make a profound difference. Approach each individual with empathy, an open mind and the right resources, and hopefully the people we work with will feel well and truly supported.